Family Chiropractic in Bend, Oregon. I'm really excited tonight about this webinar. This is something that I'm really passionate about as a mom and for someone who really takes care of so many moms. And I really see myself as a guide and a resource and someone who can encourage and empower and help inform moms on all the seasons of motherhood. And I am still learning, as we all are every single day. And I am excited to have this be a discussion. I'm going to turn on my chat right now. Dr. Dave is also going to give me a thumbs up that my sound is working because sometimes it doesn't. But I'm really excited to dive into the 5 most common ways that mothers give away their power. And when I'm talking about power, I'm talking about a deep internal knowing, your intuition, your strength, your mama bear instincts, and how we give that power away without thinking because we feel like we have to. And the actions that support it. So we can have this power and we might feel empowered ourselves, but if the actions we take for our children to advocate for our children aren't in alignment with our knowing, then we're living out of alignment and we're living for somebody else. We're living for another system or authority that isn't in alignment with what we know to be best for our babies that grew inside of us. Oh, thumbs up. Great. The babies that grew inside of us that were connected to us that we know better than anybody in the whole world. And I want this to be an empowering webinar, an informative webinar. I want it to be encouraging. I don't want it to bring any form of shame or guilt. Truly, I come with this as no judgment. You don't know certain things until you're in it in motherhood. You can, get that positive pregnancy test and feel like you know exactly what you're going to do and feel so empowered. And then in motherhood, whether it's pregnancy, birth, or all seasons of mothering, there's things that happen and you find that you may do them differently than you thought you were going to do them. But when you do any decision from a place of empowerment and being well informed, then you can move forward knowing that you're growing from that experience and making the best choice for your child. So again, I'm going to talk and share my opinions and my thoughts. And I have a chat open here. I would love for moms to chime in and share their experiences, and we can make it more of a conversation. But truly, the message here is that you are the master of your domain. Your domain is you and your children and your family. You are 100% in control of the decisions you make for your children. And this isn't like a sense of control and dominance. It's a place of love and being well informed and empowered to help your children to truly thrive and to really, tune into their God-given potential and gifts to express in this world. So really, when you're living in your power and you're not giving away your power, you're standing up against the world sometimes. You're standing up for what you know to be true, no matter the backlash that you're going to get. You may feel fear sometimes from the people who are confronted by the way that you live, but the more that you move forward in trust and empowerment and finding a tribe of other moms and families who are in agreement with you, which is more easy now than ever in some ways with social media and community building in that way, but it can also be harder in other ways because there's not as many gatherings. Things are starting to happen more, but I feel like moms have been more isolated than ever the last couple of years. And so it really can feel like you against the world. But I hope if that's you, that this webinar reminds you that you're not alone and that at our office at Pure Light, it's always a judgment-free zone to build community and support for you as an empowered mother. And so when you feel fear, but your intuition says one thing, you make that decision anyway. And the more you face these decisions and go against the status quo, the more confidence you will gain and the more empowered you will be and the more influential you will be too, because when other people see you living your life and making decisions for your family in a different way than what they're told to do by the mainstream, then it inspires others and there's a ripple effect. And that's how we really change the world and move away from a broken system in so many ways that we're living in. Okay, so you don't want to live for others. You live in alignment with what you know is best for you and your family. And this webinar is for everybody, but I'm not necessarily speaking to the moms tonight who are by the book, trust the experts no matter what, say they're not living in fear, say they're not doing anything for any other reason but what they know. And that's fine. If you don't question things, you follow the mainstream status quo, do as you're told, that's fine. I'm not judging you at all. Truly, I honor you, but this webinar might not necessarily be for you. Please listen, see if it opens up your eyes in a different way, makes you question some deep held beliefs. But this webinar is really speaking to the moms who know something feels quite off in regards to the different segments of things I'm going to dive into, the 5 ways that I'm going to dive deeper into, and they know something's off and they don't know what to do next. But they know they can do better. You know you can do better for your children, for your family, and for their future, and for our community. And at the end of the day, no matter what end of the spectrum you fall on, as mothers, we're thrown shame and mom guilt for everything we do, no matter what we do, right? It's never really good enough to somebody out there, and there's always going to be judgment and shame and guilt being thrown at us. But you can counter that with confidence and being well-informed and empowered. So the more information you know, the more that you can hold in your mind and your heart in terms of the decisions you're making for your children, the more those confrontations or judgments don't faze you, because you know in your whole entire being that what you're doing is the best for your child. And it takes time and experience to build up that confidence. It takes research, many, many hours of research. And when something doesn't feel off, that feeling of, you do anything for your child, right? That day that you first met your baby and you held your baby in your arms, you're like, I will literally do anything for this baby. I will do anything for this child. And continuing that passion and mama bear instinct throughout every season of their life and motherhood is essential, because there are going to be things that, okay, you could take the easy way out and just do it how everybody else does it, or something's off, so you dig in. You stay up late and research. You join different groups where you can learn more information. You reach out to different providers, you get different opinions. You may have to invest money and, pay out of pocket for things you never thought you'd be paying out of pocket for. But if you trust and feel empowered and continue being informed, things will be provided for you and your family. And I see this all the time in our practice, being an alternative healthcare provider myself. There are families that end up in our office almost as like a last resort. They've tried everything else, and now they're like, I know something's off. I need something different. And maybe it's out of their budget or out of their schedule time frame, but they make it work and they're provided for. Miracles happen, and those children thrive and break out of the traumas and systems that were holding them back and down. So I see this all the time. And one of my favorite things is to see a mom become empowered. I take care of moms from, preconceptive all the way through all seasons of motherhood. And one of my favorite things is to see a mom come in, usually pregnant and unsure, maybe she didn't know she wanted to be a mom and she's doing it and she doesn't know about birth. She's scared. And, through conversation and resources and connecting and building community, I see this mom become empowered. I see her have the birth that she envisions. I see her step into motherhood with so much grace and grit and beauty and love. And it's truly amazing. That's what it should be, because moms are truly the backbone of this world and they're raising the next generation. Dads are super important too, of course. I love dads, but we're talking about moms tonight. And so we know that it's not just about our gut intuition or something we read on social media or online. It's about digging in deep and doing research on all the choices that we're making for our children. And really, sometimes it's trying different things and really figuring out what works for your child, because every child is different, unique. Every family is different and unique. So it's okay. Once you make a decision, you don't have to be committed to it. It doesn't define you. There's always multiple paths, and you can ebb and flow and, really follow different ones and see which ones work best for you. And at the end of the day, there's truly evidence-based practices. There's evidence-based information out there to prove and back up most alternative choices that go against the grain, that go against the status quo. It's just knowing where to find them, how to find them, and creating the time to do so. But again, if you do anything for your kids, you dig in and you research and you go against the grain and you find out what's best for them. Because really, these evidence-based practices often show better outcomes. True. So it's again proving that your decision is actually likely a better choice for your child's future. But most people don't know the other alternatives and the better outcomes. They're just taught to not question, right? As mothers, we're like, don't ask too many questions, don't be too loud, don't speak up, don't question the experts on XYZ, ABC. But the more you dig in, the more you realize that, hey, like, I have to question, I have to speak up. And again, it also creates community because you're inspiring other families, other mothers to also speak up and question things. So don't ever ignore that gut feeling. You might feel it at a doctor's appointment when you're sending your kid off for the first day of school. We're told these feelings are normal. And again, they are. It's normal for our kids growing up to create feelings of anxiety for us, or different healthcare choices can create anxiety. But it's not necessarily normal to the point of, having to like override this deep, deep sense of anxiety that you might feel about certain things. It's common, but it's not normal. But what's happening is I feel like our whole generation of mothers who don't even necessarily hear or feel that intuition anymore. We're just on autopilot. And one of the things I love to do is just ask mothers questions when they come in. I'll ask them questions about a whole array of things. And they're like, oh, I never thought of that before. Or I never thought to question that before. And that's okay. But that's what's happened is moms have become so indoctrinated and in the system that they don't question things. And so if that's you and you're watching this, I hope that this kind of helps break open that shell and helps you feel more free and have more freedom in your choices for you and your family. Because we don't necessarily want to be filling our kids' bodies and heads with things that we don't even have the slightest clue of what they are, but we think we must. And that's not okay, because our children rely on us to help them thrive and make the best decisions. So there is another way beyond the mainstream world. So now with that, comments. Thank you, Mary, for being on here. So happy to see your name. So empowering when you arm yourself with the knowledge. That truly is it. It really is. I love how you call it arming yourself, because that's what it feels like when you are armed with knowledge and well-informed. It's empowering. You feel this sense of like, it is you against the world, but bring it on, because I know my stuff and I know what's best for my child. And no matter what you say, no matter what you throw at me, I have the information to actually counter that with evidence. And it definitely makes the decisions against, when there's fear and coercion involved, like, it is not going to phase you because you're armed. So thank you, Mary. That is such a good way to put it. Okay, so love it. Anybody else who wants to log on or chat or mention anything on the chat, please do. Love that. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in to the 5 most common ways that I find mothers give away their power. And it starts early on. So in pregnancy. So pregnancy, you get that positive pregnancy test. Everybody's story is unique and what that feels like for you. But you embark on this first initial season of motherhood and this transformation of you from a maiden to a mother. And there's so much growth. There's grief, there's excitement, there's joy. I have whole webinars on the first trimester that you can watch in terms of the intensity of that season. And then you go through the second and third trimester, and it can really go by fast. And so there can feel this overwhelm of, what choices do you make? And 99% of women are shown to just follow what the OBGYN world says. So when it comes to pregnancy wellness, if you will, and birth prep and birth itself, and then postpartum. And if you've had a great experience doing so, that's great. Unfortunately, there are a lot of women who experience trauma and really feeling like they give away their power in that system. They may do tests and screenings and interventions that they didn't know that they had a choice against. And they're never taught to truly trust their bodies. They're kind of ingrained with this fear about birth, that birth is this like really scary thing that they needed doctors' help with, instead of knowing that their bodies were designed for this and that it can be a beautiful, transformative experience. And I love that it is becoming more mainstream. We take care of a lot of moms who go alternative routes, whether at the hospital or at home, with having more unmedicated births and really trusting their bodies. But really, I cringe when I hear that, a mom says, well, my doctor told me, or my doctor won't let me, dot, dot, dot. Your doctor won't let you, dot, dot, dot. And of course, there's situations that are in the best of the mother and the baby where the doctor is advising you not to do something, but in special circumstances. But at the end of the day, women have so much choice and power over your pregnancy and how you bring your babies into the world. And it's important that you exercise that right and that you question and research everything. Because oftentimes in birth, especially, one intervention will lead to another. So it ends up being a cascade effect. But if you can prevent that need for that one intervention, then you can prevent potentially 3 more and create a more beautiful experience for you instead of a traumatic experience for you as a mother with bringing your baby into the world. And again, there's no necessarily right or wrong way. I'm not saying that any particular birth is better than another. I just think that the more empowered and well-informed we are from all through pregnancy and into birth and postpartum, the more we can thrive as mothers too and be there to support our babies the best we can. And this is a really whole other full webinar conversation about being empowered during pregnancy that I have other webinars on. You can log on and watch. And again, at the end of the day, I'm always here, as well as myself and the other docs at our office, to give you resources to empower you, to connect you with providers that we think would be a really good fit for you, that we can help you find. Interview providers. If you feel like somebody's not on the same page with you, then it's okay to switch. It's never too late to switch. I have moms that I've taken care of that have literally switched providers at 8 months, 9 months, and that may feel overwhelming, but they're so happy that they did, and that's okay. So it's never too late. And really ask questions. Hire a doula that you're in alignment with, and have a birth plan that's very clear about what you do and you don't want. And if you don't like the answers to the questions, if you feel like something's off, you can switch at any time. Yes, question and research everything. Birth, especially first births, you don't know. I mean, there's same with me, Mary. There's things with my first birth with my daughter that, here I am being super well-informed, but you don't know until you're in it. But the more well-informed you can be, then you learn from that experience, and then you go into further experiences even more empowered and informed. So yes, absolutely. Birth is a wild ride, and it's amazing. It's truly transformative, and becoming a mother is the most incredible thing. But really, the more informed you are, the better the experience will be. Okay, so the next one is parenting experts. And experts is in quotes. I mean, this can be like a mom blogger. It can be like a PhD in child psychology. It can be, yes, birth is so beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. I'm so honored to be a part of so many women's journeys and experiences. Thank you, Mary. And so parenting experts can be such a range. And oftentimes this is going to be a parenting expert in a book that you're reading, or a blog that you're reading, or a counselor, or somebody in your community. But at the end of the day, these quote unquote experts may be filled with lots of good information, research, knowledge, schooling, degrees, but they're coming from all ends of the spectrum. And when you're a new mother, you don't necessarily know what end of the spectrum you fall on. And it can feel really overwhelming because you're taking in so much advice and so many opinions on things. And at the end of the day, the more information, the better, always, but you have to digest it and process it and figure out what is best for you and your individual unique child. And, it's important for you to also understand child development. So for me, I have my undergraduate degree in child development psychology. So I find that's really helped me as a mother in understanding her. But I also have times where, that's useful, but it also, at the end of the day, I know my child. I don't need a book to tell me. But the more educated you can become on child development, if you never took any courses on child development or baby development, there's so many parenting oriented books out there that just give you basic outlines of of child development and what to expect at certain ages, which help frame your experience, but also not necessarily giving your power away to these people who know it, because you're like, oh, well, I understand this too. I may not have a PhD in it, but I get the basic gist, and it helps you frame your experience. So understanding child development and then listening to your intuition makes it all very clear. So you have a basic understanding of child development, you have your intuition, you know your child, you grew them and birthed them, and those all things all together come together. So you're taking in all this information about whatever parenting choice it is. Common ones are going to be sleep training or not sleep training, co-sleeping, etc. First foods, when to give first foods, which ones are best, how to give them. Those are just some examples, but it can also be in terms of behavioral stuff and how to best manage your child's behavior and social time and sharing. And there's literally opinions and advice on every single thing that can come up in parenting. And you need to listen to your feelings about something and your child's feelings, because we also are ingrained with how we were raised, and you may think like, oh, how I was raised was great, I'm just going to do how I was raised. But if your child's not responding well to that certain choice, then maybe it's good to step back and question it. And again, you can try certain ways of doing things, and if they don't feel right, you step back. Sleep training is a really good example of one. I see families struggle with this all the time. Our family is definitely more attachment-based, gentle, mindful parenting. We did not sleep train. We co-slept for a little bit, and then we sleep trained her when we knew developmentally, psychologically, around 3.5, that she was ready to put herself to sleep in that sense. But that was our experience. And I know families who've had to go back to work at 3 months postpartum, and they have to figure out a way to get some sleep so they can function. And there's really truly no judgment, but just understanding that when it comes to sleep training, there are so many opinions and there's so much out there. There's no right or wrong. You have to listen to your feelings about it as well as your child's feelings. Jason, oh my gosh, just made me so happy to see your name on here. Sending you love. Congrats on baby number 2. He's precious. So happy for you. And yes, so knowing what's best for your child by listening to their feelings. And that can be really tough when your child is going through an intense experience, to really put yourself in their shoes. If you're already empathic with your children, then you already know how this feels. I'm very empathic, so I feel what my child feels. And it's important to do that because that really does help guide you, because your children communicate with you through their feelings more than they can communicate with their words for the first couple of years. So when you can really be attuned to their emotions, it can help guide you to make sure that you're really giving them what they need. Okay, so next, number 3, this one is might feel a little bit like, oh, did she really just say that? But number 3 is with moms who give away their power to either their own mothers, or their mother-in-laws. Yes. And, everybody's situation is unique, but our mothers always will look at us as their babies and their children. And oftentimes when a mother becomes a grandmother, she feels so excited to share her experience and her parenting ways that worked really well. But again, you have to remember we're living in a different generation, and we know more now. There's more evidence to back up different choices than our parents knew back then. And of course, we never want to hurt our mother's feelings or our mother-in-law's feelings. At the end of the day, if you are somebody who's having any sort of tension or stress between your mother or your mother-in-law when it comes to your parenting your children, that is more not so much a problem with them, but a problem of boundaries. So having clear boundaries is a journey once you become a mom, but really having those boundaries as well as confidence, because when you're confident in your choices and you have those boundaries, you can have those respectful, open conversations to help them understand you don't need to convince anybody that your way of doing something is better or more right. You just have to be confident and have a boundary and not give away that power. Because you don't have to feel guilty. If your mom raised you a certain way and she's feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing it differently, or your mother-in-law is giving you all this advice that you didn't ask for, it's okay if you can put up that boundary and respectfully decline any more information and feel confident in what you're doing. And this is something that I think is often overlooked for a lot of families, because it's like this internal kind of private dynamic. but it can create a lot of stress for moms. And a lot of moms do give away their power. But at the end of the day, if you know your deepest truth about your child, you can stand in confidence and have those, again, respectful, open conversations with love. And eventually, for most grandparents, seeing their grandchildren and having time with their grandchildren is more important than being right or trying to change your ways. So they're likely going to back off and be respectful and honoring of your choices. It may just take some time and a lot of conversations to get there. Okay, number 4 is one that you may all be expecting, is pediatricians. So pediatricians, most have very, very good intents and goodwills with what they're doing. Their training is just limited in understanding other evidence-based, alternative, holistic, natural ways to choose healthcare for your children. And unfortunately, in our community, as well as other communities, I often hear a lot about pediatricians bullying or shaming parents for certain choices that they're making. And I've heard of this in the naturopathic world as well as the medical world. It's not, you have to be careful no matter where you go that, your provider is respectful and honoring and not shaming or bullying you on anything. I've had moms come in crying after their pediatrician appointments because they were not heard or they were shamed. I mean, this goes from something as far as like breastfeeding, like a mom feeling like something's wrong, like I'm breastfeeding my baby and it hurts, like everything hurts. And the pediatrician's like, oh, just suck it up. Like nursing's not easy. If you don't want to do it, just give them formula. And the mom truly needed lactation consulting and the baby needed chiropractic body work and craniosacral care and they weren't heard. But thankfully, these moms found us or, other options too that can really help. But how many moms don't? How many moms are just bullied and shamed into the formula or just sucking it up and feeling the pain even though they shouldn't have to? It's totally legitimate to know what you are consenting to in possible side effects about anything that any medication or vaccination or anything that you're putting in your child's body. It is perfectly legitimate to question it, to want to know the side effects, and to give a fully informed consent. And that is a very responsible thing to do as a parent. And unfortunately, when you do that, you're labeled the irresponsible one because you're not just trusting the experts. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of adverse reactions to all sorts of things in our practice from families who go to pediatricians in our community. And I know that's a, really nationwide issue. But so this is a topic that is becoming more talked about, more widely known, that yes, it's important to have a pediatrician in your corner. It's important to have a provider who you trust, but it's okay. Just like back to number 1 with the birth provider, it's okay if you don't feel in alignment with this provider. If they're not respecting your choices, you can absolutely go somewhere else and reach out to other families and moms and ask what their experiences were. And it's okay. Listen to that intuition at the end of the day with all of it. Okay, number 5, last but not least, we give our power away to the school system. And somewhere down the line, we all fell for the belief, probably because most of us were raised this way, that once your child turns 5, we should just give them away to a system that supposedly can raise and educate them better than we can. And I'm not saying schools are bad. I'm not against public education necessarily. I'm just saying that we're taught that it's okay to just hand our kids over to the experts if it doesn't feel right for us. And at the end of the day, maybe it is right for you and your family, but so many kids are forced into a system that they don't fit into or they're not thriving in. And instead of changing the environment, we try to change the child. We try to medicate them. We put them in therapy. We try to discipline them. We try to mold them. We put them in special classes with special kids and say they're different and label them. And the medications are out of control for kids. The fastest growing population of kids who are on psychotropic medications are 5-year-olds. And that is crazy and so sad because their brains are developing so quickly and we're altering them with these drugs that don't really have long-term studies to even prove that they're safe. So the end of the day, when it comes to schooling your child, the biggest question is asking yourself, is my child thriving in this environment? Are they thriving academically? Are they thriving socially? Are they thriving emotionally? And if the answer isn't yes across the board, if they don't love school and come home every day raving about their friends and raving about their teacher and, telling you what they're learning, if you're not allowed in your child's school, like is that still happening? I think right now with schools are not allowing parents even in the building because of, pandemic stuff. Like, I don't know, like that's crazy. If you're not allowed to be actively involved in your child's education to even know if they're thriving and you're just getting a report card, but not much else, then maybe it is not necessarily the right path for you. Good. Yes, Mary. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hear that all the time. Breastfeeding, the shaming around breastfeeding and medical and other choices is just unreal. And, these doctors have a lot of education, but they're oftentimes have outdated education. It's antiquated. It's not evidence-based and up to date. So again, yeah, it's crazy. So thank you for sharing your experience in so many ways, Mary. So happy to have you on here. And so back to the schools. So if your child's not thriving, change the environment. Don't try to change your child. There are other options. There's smaller schools, there's charter schools, there's private schools. If those are out of reach financially, there's a lot of other options. There's homeschool co-ops. If homeschool's not for you, that's okay too. There are other options. It's about creating community. And at the end of the day, that 5 years of age to 18 years of age in school, 9 to 2 or 3 is oftentimes like 1 or 2 hours is actually a curriculum. So a child doesn't necessarily need that many hours of education to be successful in the world. That is what we've been indoctrinated with. And it's not necessarily true. So I think more and more people are questioning that. More and more people are questioning traditional college education, unless you're going to graduate school level things. There's other options and ways to be successful in this world and contribute to the society and the world that we live in. So those are the 5, you guys. The 5 most common ways mothers give away their power. Thank you so much for logging on. I hope this was thought-provoking for you. I hope it made you question things. I hope it empowered you. I hope for those of you who are already on this path, feel validated and heard and seen, and know that at Pure Light Family Chiropractic, you are always welcome. And we are always here to be a resource and a guide and encouragement for you along your journey. There are so many seasons of motherhood, as we just went through quite a few. And you're always going to come up against things that you didn't know you had to come up against. You're going to come up against choices that you didn't even know existed until you're at that fork in the road. And again, do your research, be well informed, be empowered. We are changing the world through raising the next generation of leaders. So thank you so much for everything you do every day. Happy Mother's Day yesterday. And thank you so much, Mary. So happy you joined in on this and so happy to have you a part of our community. We love you. And thank you so much to everybody else who logged on. Please share this if you feel inclined. And again, always here if you have any questions, reach out anytime. I hope everybody has an awesome night. Thanks again. Bye.